When you move into these markets outside of Arkansas, how do you balance the feeling of, being this local brand and then expanding into, a new region where customers maybe don't know who you are yet?
That's a big challenge because we kind of have an unfair advantage here in Arkansas. We call it it's similar to like sports recruiting.
Your home field advantage.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really hoping that a lot of your listeners are sports fans, because if not, these analogies are not going to hit. But you're putting the fence around the state, like being Arkansas's only cidery, like being able to go to a bar, restaurant, retailer. It's almost like you walk in, you're wearing the shirt, you're telling them who you are, and there's just this immediate shame of, oh God, I don't have this and I need this, right? You don't get that when you go into Oklahoma or Missouri or any of these other states that we're looking at. Like you have to go beyond like that I'm just local. And so one of the ways that we go about that is talking about like our, your USPs, our unique selling points. So like we're like that unadulterated, the clean that we talk about. We go into analytical data as far as like, there's a lot of education with cider. There's still some states, Arkansas was no different, that they don't know what a cider is. Like I'd walk into places that they're calling it a beer, or which is natural because it's served similar,
It's not an ale, like some, there's my introduction to what I thought was a cider was, not to mention another brand, but Red's several years ago. But that's an ale, as I understand.
It is.
So it's different. So yeah,
and that's actually a dangerous example, because what we learned when we opened the cidery is like we had a really decent portion of our demographics that were celiac. Which means that they're not just gluten intolerant, that it could like make them very, very sick to have gluten, or even kill them in some cases. And so like to have something like, your example of Red's Apple Ale, where it's like it's marketed as though it's like a cider, for somebody just to grab that unknowingly, it could have some consequences. And I think that was another reason we leaned so heavily into the transparency when we did this.